Hello everyone, once again from the capitalist dystopia of the United Kingdom, and today we are talking about something that happened I think last week, and loads of people have covered it now. You could have watched Noah Sampson cover it, you could have watched like 1 out of 12 different Hassan clip channels post Hassan watching Noah Sampson talk about Jonah Hill. But I wanted to talk about it too, so you're going to get my perspective. And I guess something I wanted to talk about was more like Jonah Hill as like this figure rather than so much like, oh, like what does this say about like emotional manipulation, emotional abuse and stuff like that, which we're going to talk about. Because I find with Jonah Hill it's kind of interesting because he's quite popular for being like a mental health advocate, and he's done things that traditionally a lot of celebrities, actors don't actually do in terms of mental health and being open. So I guess it makes it more disappointing that it seems like he's manipulating this against like his ex-girlfriend in the text messages everyone's seen. I think with Jonah Hill it's a bit more interesting because of course if someone's like very physically abusive, you're like there's no way you can really justify that if you're a normal rational person, especially these days. But there was an interesting comment I saw on Reddit, and it said it's a special type of abuse that seems specific to our generation. Like, our mums were straight up controlled by men because it's a woman's role, whereas men in our generation, deep down, want all the same patriarchal benefits their dads benefited from, that they feel entitled to, but they also want to feel like a modern progressive ally. So they manipulate us with therapy jargon and gaslighting. Many years into it, I was comforting my ex for abusing me while he was abusing me. I was telling me that I understood his fits of anger came from his dad mistreating him as a kid, and that it's okay, and I didn't take it personally, and next time I would try not to trigger him. Good riddance. And I think the generational stuff is quite interesting as well, because Jonah Hill is millennial, his ex-girlfriend was Gen Z, and someone also said, Gen Z in the context of like the US or maybe England or whatever, they're raised in ways to believe men and women are inherently equal, and the way they're taught about these things is very different from millennials who were kind of raised in that way, and it had like that old patriarchal hangover. So like that comment was saying, like you get people who kind of want that patriarchal control, but the flavor of it is very different, because most people in like millennial dating circles, if you hit your partner, not only you maybe suffer legal consequences, but also just like if you have any reputation for that stuff, people can understand it's bad. But what you see with the Jonah Hill thing is because of what he's done is a bit more like in this language of like my boundaries and things like that. Basically, a lot of people are taking his side, and they're like, well, Jonah Hill set out his boundaries, and if you didn't like that, then it's on you to leave him. And I think it's very interesting that boundaries for one person, if you don't subject yourself to me controlling your life, then you're infringing on my like emotional boundaries. It is a very, very warped view of this term that is, of course, common in therapy. So we're going to talk about Jonah Hill's like history. We're going to look at the text. I don't want to read like every single one, but we're going to look at a lot. Then we're just going to have a look at like what people have been saying about this, how we view these things. And yeah, like I said, I know a lot of people have covered this, but I want to cover it as well. So before we go any further, please like the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, especially if you're a millennial, because I'm right on that border. I'm born at the end of 1995, and I believe Gen Z is 1996. So I just missed out. I'm the youngest millennial alive. But let me know anyway if this is something you've experienced in the dating scene. Doesn't have to be as like severe as what we're seeing here, only if you're comfortable with it, of course. And also follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Twitter, on Instagram, and also obviously on Threads now. I'm using that a fair bit, but I'm also on Blue Sky, so check that all out. I'm also trying to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible. Benefits include exclusive content, access to the Discord server, and access to my Nintendo Switch friend code. So go check that out if you want to support me, and also check out my subreddit and check out my second channel down in the description. So just a little bit on like domestic abuse before we get into like Jonah Hill as a person, or maybe even an advocate for taking your mental health seriously and being public about it. And we've been talking a lot about spectrums recently in terms of like transphobia or racism, or how people don't really understand these things, because with transphobia and racism, it's like if you're not like Matt Walsh in terms of transphobia, and if you're not like, I don't know, on the far right in terms of racism, then you can't really be seen as a racist in any way. But as we all know, it's a spectrum, and of course you can be. And it's the same with like abuse. And I know, women in my family specifically have suffered pretty horrific abuse before in domestic settings. Obviously, like children involved, physical violence, emotional abuse. Like basically, think of like the stereotypical, man abusing his wife or something you see in maybe like a movie about the 1950s or whatever. It's pretty much that. Like, it was absolutely terrible. But you have terrible examples like what I'm mentioning. So in a lot of people's minds, that is what this sort of abusive situation looks like. Or it's something where there's something more extreme in terms of the threats of violence or maybe even harming oneself or something like that. So when they see something like Jonah Hill, and they see these text messages, a lot of men on Twitter, I was reading it today, they're like, what's the issue? Like I said, he set his boundaries out. You're going to call this guy the same as, a guy I've just mentioned? Jonah Hill is the same as that. He's just as bad. And no one is saying that, right? And that's where the conversation often gets lost. No one is saying Jonah Hill is like this very stereotypical abusive husband. But like that, kind of Reddit comment was saying, this is kind of like this millennial form of the emotional side, where you kind of even gaslight someone into thinking they're being the abusive one because they're not taking your boundaries or mental health seriously. And that's just something people need to keep in mind. What he's doing here is like emotional abuse and gaslighting. And it's important people realize it can take a form like this. But let's talk about Jonah Hill, because in the videos I've been watching today about it, I haven't really seen too many people talk about this. So, of course, Jonah Hill was quite larger in his teenage years and younger years when he became a breakout star. Over recent years, it seems he's taken his fashion more seriously, obviously lost a lot of weight. He's probably feeling quite good, but he also said Jonah Hill calls out fans for commenting on his body image. It's not helpful and doesn't feel good. So the actor addressed criticism of his weight earlier this year after Daily Mail post shirtless photos of him. Posting a screenshot of the article on Instagram, he wrote, "I don't think I ever took my shirt off in a pool until I was in my mid-30s, even in front of family and friends. Probably would have happened sooner if my childhood insecurities weren't exacerbated by years of public mockery about my body by press and interviewers." Hill was taken to Instagram this time to ask fans not to address his body image. "I know you mean well, but I kindly ask that you don't comment on my body, good or bad. I want to politely let you know it's not helpful and doesn't feel good. Much respect." So that's pretty commendable. He's even saying, this whole dialogue about people's bodies when you see them in public, like at the pool or at the beach, it's just not helpful in the grand scheme of things. And of course, he's someone who suffered a lot of negative comments about his body image. So you can understand how that's maybe made him like really insecure, which might play into this, dynamic. But also this other thing I respected when I saw it, because I can imagine a lot of actors are just kind of sick of this, but I can also imagine like if you suffer from mental health issues and like anxiety, like dealing with the press, especially if they've been pretty terrible to you, is quite hard. So Jonah Hill has stopped doing press in order to protect his mental health. This is back in 2022. So he announced that he will not be taking part in any press for any of his films moving forward in an effort to protect his mental health. The actor, who has publicly spoken out about body shaming in the past, opened up about the experience of living with anxiety and explained his decision to step away from movie promo in an open letter first published by Deadline. So this is what his letter said. "I have finished directing my second film, a documentary about me and my therapist, which explores mental health in general, called Stutz. The whole purpose of making this film is to give therapy and the tools I've learned in therapy to a wide audience for private use through an entertaining film. Through this journey of self-discovery within the film, I've come to the understanding I've spent nearly 20 years experiencing anxiety attacks, which are exacerbated by media appearances and public-facing events. I am so grateful that the film will make its world premiere at a prestigious film festival this fall, and I can't wait to share it with audiences around the world in the hope it will help those struggling. However, you won't see me out there promoting this film or any of my upcoming films while I take this important step to protect myself. If I made myself sicker by going out there and promoting it, I wouldn't be acting true to myself or the film. I usually cringe at letters or statements like this, but I understand I am of the privileged few who can afford to take time off. I won't lose my job while working on my anxiety. With this letter and with Stutz, I'm hoping to make it more normal for people to talk and act on this stuff, so they can take steps forward towards feeling better and so that the people in their lives might understand their issues more clearly." And I think that is obviously like a statement a lot of people can relate to, even though we aren't like rich Hollywood celebrities who are like making our own films and stuff. You can kind of relate to like maybe, I don't know, certain things in your life that conjure up anxiety, and if you're privileged enough, you would like to remove that from your life. Like, I know because I have OCD, one thing that's really bad for me is I don't have social anxiety, and I don't find like public events or whatever, I don't find them personally like giving me mental health issues, but because I have OCD, I anticipate stuff so bad. The best example I could give you is when I used to be grinding and like doing loads of job interviews, I would never be nervous for the interview. I would never be nervous when I actually showed up to the interview, like sitting outside waiting. I would be more anxious about like missing my train in the morning, finding the actual place, and like all of that stuff going well. And it's like if there's something I don't want to do and I know it's coming up, like I will dread that for months and months and months. But when it actually comes around, it's fine. Like I remember a wedding I went to last year, like where I didn't know anyone, and I was like dreading it for ages. But I went and I had like a nice time. And when I actually, woke up on the day, I was fine about it. So if I could like remove that from my life, that feeling, I guess I would take steps to do it. Obviously, it's a bit different from Jonah Hill. So I feel like lots of people can relate to that. Whatever gives you anxiety or makes your life worse, whatever, we'd like to eliminate it, I guess. And we can relate to Jonah Hill, and it's nice he's speaking up and saying these things. And I was actually curious about this film because we're talking about mental health and Jonah Hill. And Vice actually did an interview with a therapist. So it's called What an Actual Therapist Thinks of Jonah Hill's Netflix doc. So in Stutz, Hill celebrates his therapist turned friend's unusual methods. But how ethical is friendship with your therapist anyway? So Vice, we asked James Davis, a qualified psychotherapist and author of Sedated, how modern capitalism created our mental health crisis. And I think this might be interesting and maybe relevant to what we're talking about. So Vice asks, how does Stutz differ as a celebrity and leading psychiatrist to a standard therapist viewers might see? Davies saying, it differs in many ways. Stutz developed his ideas and practices in a very unique environment, working with a highly privileged Hollywood elite. Many of his clients appear to believe that he gives them special access to higher universal forces so long as they apply his tools unquestioningly. For his approach, he claims an almost transcendental status, as might a shaman, diviner, or necromancer. He demands total faith for healing and life transformation to occur. What distinguishes his approach from work in clinical psychology is that it's totally divorced from any scientific evidence base. In the place of evidence, we have faith. In the place of research-led practice, we have a charismatic leadership. If or when his approach works, I suspect it has less to do with the reasons he gives, the tools bringing you closer to the universal force, and more to do with his approach appealing to common factors, as we call them in psychology. This means the effective kindling of faith, hope, and the placebo effect, the power of being heard, feeling close, and feeling supported. So one more question. Usually therapists rarely advise or instruct, but Stutz takes on a more direct approach to Hill. Is that problematic? Dave is saying, there are some very good psychological reasons why many therapists don't advise. It assumes we know better, it means we assume power over other people's lives and decisions, and it nurtures dependency in our clients. They learn to follow us rather than develop their own instincts for what is right and their own decision-making abilities. Aside from moments of crisis management where some advice might be certainly appropriate, most therapists steer clear of taking the power due to its possible long-term harmful effects. So I haven't watched the documentary, but just what was interesting in that Vice interview is that it seems like this therapist, Stutz, is like more unconventional and is actually like Jonah Hill's friend. And what they were saying in this interview is like there could be problems with having this therapist in a Hollywood bubble who does kind of cross that boundary between therapist and your friend, and in essence it isn't as conventional therapy that Jonah Hill has received. And obviously, like, I don't know how this necessarily has affected him, but it seems pretty clear that Jonah Hill weaponizing his like mental health issues and stuff, I don't think he's using it as an excuse in the conventional sense of, I just want to be a bad person, here's my excuse. I just genuinely believe that he's extremely self-centered, and in protecting his mental health, that's all he really cares about. And then he believes that, if you don't accept him protecting his mental health, whatever that is, it's kind of like you being a dick, basically. And that is what these texts often reveal. So now I just wanted to go through some of these texts I've seen on Twitter. And then you would have seen this therapist also giving his take about the text, so we'll play some of that as well. So most of you would have seen these, but we're going to go through them. So Sarah Brady is Jonah Hill's ex. Jonah Hill just had a baby recently with a new partner, and both these women are in their mid-20s. So in December, Jonah Hill texts her, And just for context, she is like a surfer, model, stuff like that. So plain and simple, if you need surfing with men, boundaryless, inappropriate friendships with men, to model, to post pictures of yourself in a bathing suit, to post sexual pictures, friendships with women who are in unstable places, and from your wild recent past beyond getting a lunch or coffee or something respectful, I am not the right partner for you. If these things bring you to a place of happiness, I support it, and there will be no hard feelings. These are my boundaries for romantic partnerships. My boundaries with you based on the ways these actions have hurt our trust. Sarah replying, this makes me feel like you're testing me to see if you should keep me around or dump me, because there's something wrong with me, like I'm a nerdy, dorky, unaware, naive idiot socially. I hear you. Those words are yours, not mine. Take some accountability, Jonah says, and operate with respect. It's that simple. Because I'm tired of your attitude towards surf culture, that contest and that place because I deserve respect, period. I have been more than patient, and then shit like this is still here. That contest, that place, and respecting me always in every situation within surf culture, or you don't get it and you don't get me. It's hurtful and unacceptable to me. Get it? I don't know if you get it or care or give a shit about the shit more than me, even after Dr. Stern has said it loud and clear. And Dr. Stern is the couples therapist we're seeing for about 4 months. Jonah also saying, literally just say hello and leave the convo. Love how your therapist thinks I suck, because he does. I literally am the best boyfriend on earth. Jonah also saying, Owen modeling is the last profession I would be with as a partner. She says, fot pics, I guess because he said that to her. But lol, must be hard feeling so trapped. She says, well, maybe you should have asked me more about what I do for work before you decided to date me then. A little late now. He says, keep taking me for granted. Go model. It's a fulfilling life. You'll love it. Real depth and substance and sustainability for relationships. But actually, I'm done with this convo. I guess he means I'm done. Even the person I loved and share a bed with uses me and can't just be like, yeah, you were super nice. It hurt so badly, but I'm done apologizing. I was so lovely to you. And then she also posts, he was posting emojis of love hearts of photos on Instagram she posted of her surfing in a bikini, and he was actually sending her photos to take down. And she says, this is a warning to all girls. If your partner is talking to you like this, make an exit plan. Love y'all. Call me if you need an ear. So you see here, he says, respect however you want to live your life. You only get one. Sort of done with explaining myself. She says, free removed, not the video yet. It's my best surfing video. Would you feel better if the cover frame was different? Any more specific ones that bother you? Yes, one that isn't of your arse and a thong, not a thong, but K. And then she posted another photo saying, reviving a pic I took down by the request of a misogynist narcissist. And there's one she posts as well. And then one more message Jonah Hill sent. You're right, we can't do surf social things or develop trust until you consider me and make decisions that give regard to our relationship. I've been as vulnerable as possible, and I am telling you I'm needing you to step up to the plate, which you can, I'm sure of it, but these losers don't get your time. If you want me, straight up, it's consideration. I respect your love of surfing, but I respect myself as well, and your love of surfing and being in those situations and lack of awareness are not mutually exclusive. This isn't me. I have my own issues that I own. If you want marriage and a family, you can't use a 25 card. Step up and cut the shit. These people don't get your time or your kindness at the sacrifice of mine. But the reason I read you all that stuff about Jonah Hill and therapy before reading the text is to just kind of give you maybe an insight into like why he's doing this. Because some people are saying that he was just using it as an excuse, but it's clear that he basically sees his mental health as like the priority number one, and he seems like someone who's incredibly insecure but also really narcissistic. Like, he thinks a healthy boundary to set in a relationship is controlling pretty much every aspect of your partner's life, saying you need to grow up, take down all these surfing videos because other men might find them attractive. And why is he doing that? Because he's basically scared she'll leave him. If she's flirting with other guys, if she's posting pictures in bikinis, it means she wants to leave him, basically because she wants someone else to come in like he did and say, oh, what a nice photo, want to get together. And also, he sees it as disrespect against him. And he sees it as embarrassing. Like, it seems like because he's been embarrassed so much in his life about things like his looks and his weight, he just wants to take all steps to avoid embarrassment and avoid someone leaving him. So his healthy boundaries, which he sees to his mental health, are actually, can I control everything in my life so it doesn't affect me? And as someone like with OCD myself as well, it kind of reminds me of OCD. Of course, my OCD doesn't make me do stuff like this, you know, like it's incredibly misogynistic outlook he has. But what it feels like is some sort of defense mechanism where everything has to be just as he likes it. just on his schedule, just on his terms. And if there's any threat to that, he has to shut it down really quick. And he thinks if you won't help him in that, well, you don't really care about him. You don't care about his mental health. You don't care about his feelings. He's been vulnerable and open with you, saying how much he doesn't like that. And, acting like he's chill with it. Like, just leave. This infringes on my boundaries. Just, go. But of course, they were in couples therapy. They both had therapy separately, it seems, as well. And if he is seeing this Stutz guy based on his unconventional, therapeutic methods or whatever, it seems like it's not working. But also, therapy isn't everything, right? You can go to therapy. Lots of people who are pretty terrible go to therapy, and it can be like nice and validating to get your opinions out there. But it seems like he is taking it so seriously, he feels like it's basically an excuse for shitty behavior, or he feels like he can be shitty to achieve his optimal mental health or whatever, not realizing he is, being actually emotionally abusive. Now, you would have seen this video going around because other people shared it, but there's this TikTok I wanted to show you by a TikToker called Therapy Jeff, and he just talks about this from like a therapist perspective. So let's have a look at this.
Jonah's use of the term boundaries in this message is a misuse of the concept. A boundary is a healthy limit a person sets for themselves to protect their well-being and integrity. It is a rule or guideline that one creates to identify reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for others to behave towards them and how they'll respond when someone passes those limits. However, in the message Jonah sent to Sarah, he is not setting boundaries that protect his emotional well-being. Instead, he is dictating what behaviors and friendships Sarah is permitted to have. He's essentially instructing Sarah on who she can be friends with, what she can do professionally, and how she can show up online. This is not an example of healthy boundary setting. Instead, it reflects an attempt at control. It demonstrates a lack of respect for Sarah's autonomy and individuality. Jonah's message is more about restricting Sarah's behavior to suit his comfort levels and insecurities, rather than expressing his feelings or needs in a healthy manner. A healthier and less manipulative approach might be for Jonah to express how Sarah's actions make him feel without using ultimatums about what she should or should not do.
So yeah, I like what that guy was just saying about how it is just all about just controlling someone else. It isn't anything to do with actual boundaries, because yeah, it's fine to have boundaries in a relationship, of course. And it could be to do with like people's relationships with members of the opposite sex. If there's a boundary you have about how close people can be or whatever, not that I have personally have those boundaries, yeah, I do get that to some extent as well. But the extent of, cover up all your body. She's a surfer in the surfing community. He likes that to start with, and it's like, no, you must only show your body for me. You belong to me, essentially, and you must cut out all these immature surfing bros because they might steal you away. And a lot of women online I saw sharing stories similar to Jonah Hill, basically all saying their partners were just so insecure. And this insecurity just completely warped their view on boundaries and mental health, and they just sought to control their partner's behavior so they wouldn't be impacted negatively. And why they kind of like backlash to this, I guess, in terms of people supporting Jonah Hill is a bit depressing, is because it shows how far we have to go, in terms of viewing relationships or emotional abuse. People saying like, oh, well, I wouldn't want my girlfriend to dress slutty. Like, why would she do that? I don't want her to post revealing bikini pics on Twitter or Instagram. Why would she do that? And again, why do you care? What I never understand about this, if you're not insanely insecure, is speaking as like a man in like a straight relationship myself, your partner has chosen you. She's chosen you for a variety of reasons. And if she's going to leave you one day, you're not going to be able to stop it, right? But you're together for a reason. You have a good relationship, and if you have problems, you like work on them. Insecurity and jealousy as you get older are so just immature qualities at all. And I think as someone who's been in a relationship for 10 and a half years, one of the best things in a relationship you have to recognize is that you two are both individuals. And I think a lot of problems come from people who make their identities a couple straight away. And I think this happens a lot. Like, you guys will have friends where the individuals have basically died because now it's a couple. Every time you see them, they're together, and the person or the people you used to know on their own, they don't really exist anymore. And this doesn't always have to be sinister, But maintaining some sort of individuality, I think, is really, really healthy. So me and my girlfriend, for example, I'm not saying we're like the perfect couple, but we have been together for a long, long time, no major issues and stuff like that. We both have like our own separate lives. We have separate friend groups. We have friends which are the same as well. We can post whatever we want on social media. We can talk to whoever we want on social media because we're both secure in ourselves and secure in our relationship. And we're both our own individuals and we accept that, right? And I'm sure there are a lot of you watching this who have a similar relationship and you understand how important that is. And I don't like when two individuals basically become like the couple, like that is all they are now to you because you can never really see them on their own. But it's even more depressing when it's clear someone has forced that. And that's what Jonah Hill was trying to do, is like, no, if you're in a relationship with me and you are basically one, right? All your other interests, all these people you used to be friends with, even your hobby, which I liked, that has to go. You can't do that anymore. And I'm trying to fundamentally change you to make you a version of yourself, which for me is easy to control. And also as someone who's insanely insecure, I'm trying to mitigate any factors that could hurt my feelings or make me really jealous or make me really angry and stuff. So I've got to be emotionally manipulative and abusive to make you this way. And I'm hoping now people are realizing this form of abuse is more serious than we talk about. Because like I said at the start of the video, we all have that, stereotype of what an abusive man in particular looks like. Someone who hits his partner, someone who is unaccountable, maybe cheats, gaslight, manipulates them, of course, but has the threat of like physical violence as well to keep their partner basically their prisoner and really just manipulate them into the perfect version or the version of a person that will just not leave them, essentially. And with Jonah Hill here, you also have the power dynamic of he's a rich Hollywood actor. He's way older as well, like 13 years older. And that power imbalance also allows him to be more manipulative. And then, like I said, with the boundaries things, he's putting it all on her. Like, if you don't do this, you're unreasonable. But the first text on its own is bad. But then the other text I read you just make him out to be such an asshole that he is like belittling her, saying like, oh, what a, fulfilling career modeling is and stuff like that. I've been so vulnerable. I'm the best boyfriend ever. And in his twisted view, he probably thinks that because he's been so open about his mental health. So he fundamentally associates that with being a good person. Like, I've been open, you're hiding things, or you're trying to be this individual, and I don't like that. And because I don't think you're making enough of an effort in the relationship, but what I actually mean is you're not completely changing yourself to basically appease me, then I'm the good one in the relationship, you're the one who's ruining it, you're the toxic one. And I'm just glad this story is getting a lot of attention because, yeah, like, this isn't the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, but it's something that's becoming increasingly common. And I actually see this stuff so much. I browse relationships Reddit quite a lot. I don't know why, really. I've always done it. And it's so depressing because most of the stories you see there are actually people in their early 20s with older guys in their 30s. And they're basically this. Like, I've seen this story so many times. It's like, my boyfriend treats me like absolute garbage in like this emotionally manipulative way. Am I the bad person for not accepting it? And basically, the answer to every post has become a bit of a meme at this point, but it seems to be fitting. Like, break up with him, leave him, red flag. But increasingly, it seems like the world is filled with Jonah Hills, men in their mid and late 30s, going out with younger women in their 20s in an attempt to probably emotionally manipulate them because they know they're probably not going to get away with it as much with women their own age. Now, anyway, that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.